In this video, we're going to talk about converting units. Now, converting between different units is something that you're expected to be able to do in physics. You particularly need to be able to convert easily between the different metric units. If something's grams, being able to convert it into kilograms. You also need to be able to convert between things like miles per hour and meters per second. This is going to come up a lot. The quicker that you memorize some of this stuff, the better it'll be for you and the easier it'll be for you. Whenever you're converting units, one of the ways that you probably learned how to do it in middle school or maybe earlier in high school is using King Henry died by drinking chocolate milk. And that stands for kilo, hecta, deca, base unit, deci, centi, and milli. The way you do this, in case you don't know, so let's say you have 42 centimeters and you're trying to figure out how many kilometers that is. Well, centimeters are really small, like smaller than an inch, and kilometers are really big, like bigger than half of a mile. So 42 centimeters is not going to be a whole lot in kilometers. You're going to get a really small number. You figure out where you are, so we're at centi and we're going to kilometers, to kilo. And so we start at centi. And we're going to hop 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hops to the left. And then that tells us how we move our decimal. Because when you're converting between different metric units, all you do is move the decimal. The decimal is here. So I'm going to move it 5 to the left. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's my new decimal. And so my answer is 0.00042 kilometers. Like I said, it's not a whole heck of a lot of a kilometer. Okay, let's say we wanted to do that again. We wanted to go 15.2 grams and figure out how many milligrams that is. Well, hopefully you already have memorized that milli means 1,000. And so there are 1,000 milligrams in a gram. And so you should be able to just say this is 15,200 because that times 1,000. But in case you don't know that, grams is a base unit. There's no prefix on it, so that's here. And so if I start at my base unit and then I want to get to milli, so base unit for grams, and then 1, 2, 3 to the right. Here's my decimal, 1, 2, 3 to the right. Fill in with zeros, 15,200. Okay. Now again, memorizing that anytime I'm going from milli to a base unit, I'm just going to multiply by 1,000, knowing that again, there's 1,000 meters in a kilometer, and so kilo means 1,000, but the other direction. Memorizing this stuff makes your life a lot easier, but you can use this if you have to while you're trying to memorize it. So another thing you can use on the AP Physics formula chart, and was also on your math review assignment, on the formula chart, it gives you the exponent. So it tells you that like kilo is 10 to the third, and giga is 10 to the sixth, and milli is 10 to the negative third. So if you know those things, you can use those as well to do stuff that's really simple. So if I have 87 microliters, this is micro. A micro is a millionth of a meter, so it's times 10 to the negative sixth. So just by knowing that, I can say that 87 microliters is going to be 87 times 10 to the negative sixth liters. Now that's not in proper scientific notation. It would be 8.7 times 10 to the negative fifth liters. But it gets me a starting point, and sometimes I don't need to have it in proper scientific notation if I'm just putting it in my calculator. So that's another way that you can do that. Now, another way to convert is using what's called dimensional analysis. Now, you've probably done dimensional analysis already because in chemistry, whenever you did stoichiometry and you had to go from moles to grams to liters, etc., you had to use dimensional analysis to do that. So it's a way to set up your conversion factors and your units to help you figure out the problem. So if I'm trying to get from 82 milligrams to picograms, I can't really use King Henry died by drinking chocolate milk because pico isn't on there. I may know that pico is smaller, so it's on the milli side, and I might be able to figure that out. Well, I mean, I can, but I also may look on my physics formula sheet or just have memorized that after this it goes by thirds. So milli is times 10 to the third, micro is times 10 to the sixth, and then there's nano, which is times 10 to the ninth, and then pico, which is times 10 to the 12th. And so I can actually use this and dimensional analysis to figure this out if I want to. And so dimensional analysis, you start with what you've got, so milligrams. Now I believe that your teachers may have called it times in a line. That's not what I call it, and I use these little parentheses, but it's the same thing, it's just multiplication. So you take whatever you've got, and I have milligrams, and I'm going from milligrams, and I want to go to picograms. But I don't know how many milligrams are in a picogram. I don't know that conversion factor on my own. But I do know that there are 1,000 milligrams in a gram, because I know that conversion factor, milli to base unit. And then I also know that pico is to the 12th. So I got rid of my milligrams, and I want to take my grams, what's on top, and I want to put it on bottom. And I'm going to picograms now, because I know off the top of my head that 1 picogram is 10 to the negative 12th grams. Sometimes you got to think about that a little bit. Pico is teensy weensy, so this is going to be 10 to the negative 12th grams. And so then I can use that. I know I'm right because I have milli cancels out, and then my grams cancel out, and it leaves me with pico. And I've checked my conversion factors, and I know that they're right. Okay, so I'm going to do anything on top, I'm going to multiply. Anything in bottom, I'm going to divide. And so I'm doing 82 divided by 1,000 divided by 10 to the negative 12th. That gives me 82 with 8 zeros on it, or 82 times 10 to the 8th picograms. And I know that this is 8.2 times 10 to the 9th in proper scientific notation. So let's think about that. Let's think if that's right. So a picogram is times 10 to the negative 12th. It's teensy weensy. Milligrams, even though they're small, they're pretty big compared to pico, because they're only 1,000th of a gram. And so if I have 82 milligrams, that's going to be a whole lot of picograms. And that makes sense because this is a big number. You also see that you went from 3 to 12, and so you had to move 9 to do that. So there's different ways you can do this. If you're familiar with that, if you can do that, and that makes sense to you, it's easy to do that. It's easy to know that you're going to hop 3, 6, 9 to the right. But you can also use dimensional analysis. Now, I probably wouldn't use dimensional analysis for something so simple. Sometimes I might, but I wanted to show you it in the easy way before I show you the more complicated ones. So let's look at something a little bit more complicated in the next video so that this one doesn't get too long.